Rabbit punches are illegal in boxing, and they're illegal for a very good reason. The story of Prichard Colon, a former boxer, is a prime example of why they're illegal. Since 2015, Colon has been in a vegetative state following his fight with Terrell Williams. Fighting out of Puerto Rico. Colon is known for a lot of things, mostly his career-ending injury, but it wasn't always like that. Colon was an incredibly hot prospect fighting out of Puerto Rico. Colon was initially born in Maitland, Florida back in 1992. However, just 10 years later, Colon would move to Puerto Rico with his father, Prichard Colon, and his younger sister. Colon would begin training in boxing after moving to Puerto Rico and represented the island in boxing. While living in Orocovis, Puerto Rico, Colon began to train at the Albergue Olympico gym. He showed incredible talent and promise from an early age. During Colon's amateur career, he was able to win 5 national championships and had a flawless record. It was also during his amateur career that Colon got his boxing nickname, Dig It, a play on the word digger. Although Colon was 6 foot, 1.82 meters, he fought in the lighter weight classes. Colon was on track to go to the Olympics after competing in the pre-Olympics in Brazil. However, while fighting at the Olympics, Colon lost to another fighter, one of the few defeats in his entire boxing career. Before going pro in 2012, Colon's amateur record was a stunning 17 wins, 0 losses, and 0 draws. Going pro.
Oh, sure did, and he backs it up with another right hand.
Colon landed on the professional boxing scene with a huge bang, only making his final fight all the more iconic. In 2012, after several years as an amateur, Colon decided to become a professional fighter. His first professional fight was a year later, in 2013, and was against another fighter named Xavier LaSalle. Colon easily won the fight by knocking LaSalle out within the first round. The Puerto Rican's rise to fame and then infamy would only continue from here. The next fighter on Colon's hit list was a fighter by the name of Patrick Thomas. Just like his first fight, Colon won the fight by knockout by dropping Thomas within the second round. Colon's third fight was against Jorge Burgos. As he had done the last 2 times, Colon was able to win the fight via knockout. Colon won the fight in the first round after knocking Burgos out. Colon was already on an incredible knockout and winning streak, and his fourth fight would continue that theme. The fourth fight Colon had was against Juan Santos Rodriguez. In his first fight as a 21-year-old, he once again knocked Rodriguez out in the first round. Colon's fifth opponent was another fighter named Jonathan Garcia. Colon won this fight, yet again, within the 5th round after the ref stopped the fight, giving the win to Colon. For his 6th fight, Colon squared off against Victor Moya. Colon stopped Moya in the first round with yet another knockout. He would actually go on to secure 10 back-to-back knockouts before his streak was broken. In his 7th fight, Colon fought against Jose Vidal Soto. Once again, Colon stopped Soto in the first round with a devastating knockout. For his 8th fight, Colon faced Shad Howard. Howard, just like everyone else Dig It had faced up to this point, fell to Colon in the first round through a knockout. The 9th person that Colon faced off against was Javier Garcia. Garcia lasted longer than most of Colon's previous opponents and was able to withstand the Puerto Rican for 3 rounds. In the 3rd round, however, Colon secured the win via knockout. The last person that Colon knocked out in his first knockout streak was Carlos Garcia Hernandez. Hernandez lasted even longer than Javier Garcia, only getting knocked out in the 5th round by Colon. Colon then fought Linwood Dozier for his 10th fight. It seemed like Colon was losing steam, seemingly foreshadowing his eventual fate when he was unable to knock out Dozier. Instead, the fight went for 6 rounds before Colon won by unanimous decision. Colon then fought against Christopher Degollado. Degollado was able to hold up to Dig It for 8 rounds before the fight was ultimately given to Colon through another unanimous decision. Dig It's next opponent was Hector Munoz. Munoz was able to stand up to Dig It, but like Degollado and others before him, Munoz lost the fight via unanimous decision in the 6th round. After Munoz, Colon was able to secure another knockout. The newest victim of Dig It was a fighter named Daniel Calzada. The two fought for 9 total rounds before Calzada was knocked out by Dig It. The last minor fight that Colon had was against another fighter named Michael Finney. Colon faced Finney and, just like his earlier pro career, beat Finney early into the fight through a knockout. Finney lost in the 2nd round after being knocked out by Dig It. Getting on the map.
Early in this round, ate some punches and is now Yeah, but if Vivian really wants to win this fight, or even...
Colon had proved his talent and abilities as a fighter. He was on top of the world and would remain that way for one more fight before his career-ending injury came. After knocking Finney out, Colon would have his second most notable fight. The first most notable fight was his most tragic. On September 11, 2015, Diggett faced off against Vivian Harris. Harris was a legend in boxing who had aggressively fought for several years and was the former WBA super lightweight champion between 2002 and 2005. Harris had a long career, having a total of 48 fights, 33 of which he won. Of those 33 fights, 19 were won through knockout. When Diggett and Harris fought, Harris had lost his last fight. The former champ was thirsty for redemption. Harris seemingly had the advantage going into the fight against Diggett, whereas Diggett had 16 fights, none of which he lost. Harris had 33 fights, only losing 12 of them. Harris also had the weight advantage. Despite being slightly shorter than Diggett, the two had the same reach. Although Diggett seemed to be at a disadvantage, he was thirsty to continue his winning streak. Going into the first round, both fighters applied pressure, but were cautious. Diggett threw more punches and managed to avoid Harris's punches. As the first round continued, both fighters maintained their pressure, but Diggett began to be more aggressive. When the second round began, Harris began to apply more pressure to Diggett as well, but Diggett continued to fend him off. Harris began to rush Diggett, but Diggett was able to clinch him and push him away, continuing to apply pressure to the shorter fighter. As the third round began, Colon was able to push Harris against the ropes. Although Harris was able to get off the ropes quickly, it was apparent by now that he wasn't as aggressive as the Puerto Rican, which was an advantage for Diggett. Up to this point, Colon had been far more aggressive than Harris. This aggression led up to the fourth round, the final round. Harris was visibly tired, but Colon appeared to still have energy. Near the 1-minute mark, Colon pushed Harris against the ropes and began to unleash hooks on his head and body. A right cross finally dropped Harris to the canvas. After knocking out Harris and winning the bout, Colon was regarded incredibly highly. Not only had Diggett been on a 16-fight win streak, but he had faced a champion and knocked said champion out. Diggett was, without a doubt, one of the hottest boxing prospects. However, it would all come crumbling down in his next bout. Rabbit punching. Before we get into the end of Colon's career, let's make sure we're all up to speed. Colon faced off against Terrell Williams, and after several rabbit punches from Williams, collapsed and sustained a severe injury. A rabbit punch is a highly illegal punch in boxing, and is where one boxer hits another boxer in the back of the head. Why is it so illegal? Well, the origin of the punch's name is a good explanation. The name rabbit punch comes from a technique hunters use, where they quickly hit the back of a rabbit's head. This kills it. The rabbit punch strikes a very vulnerable part of the body, the stem of the brain. It can have absolutely devastating effects, as Colon would sadly learn, hence why it's illegal. The two met on October 17, 2015, and had an absolute war with one another. The fight went on for 9 rounds before ending. For 5 rounds, Colon dominated Williams. He had the reach advantage against Williams and kept Terrell at a distance. Whenever Williams would try to close distance, he was met with a swift and hard counter from Diggett. Things changed during the 5th round, however. Diggett was the more aggressive fighter up to that point, before Williams began to apply more pressure to the Puerto Rican. In response, Colon hit Williams with a low blow, which dropped Williams. He was deducted 2 points by the ref. After taking the foul, Colon seemed more hesitant. Williams took advantage of his hesitancy by landing his own foul shot, the infamous rabbit punch. The punch happened in the 7th round, and Colon was given 5 minutes to recover. He took 5 minutes and seemed to be back in his zone, but it was a facade. Things changed once again in the 9th round, when Williams managed to drop Colon twice. As the round ended, Colon's corner began taking off his gloves. They thought it was the end of the 10th round. Since Colon's gloves were taken off early, the ref ended the fight there. Then, tragedy struck. As Colon went back to his dressing room, he complained about feeling woozy and dazed. He collapsed in the dressing room and was rushed to the hospital. While he was there, Diggett was diagnosed with a brain bleed on the left side of his brain. While in the hospital, things deteriorated even further. Colon would ultimately end up in a coma for an insane 221 days, more than half of a year. When he awoke from the coma, months after his final fight, he was in a vegetative state. Colon has been in the same state ever since, a total of 8 years as of 2023. The aftermath.
Mira, porque tú me quitaste la gorra mía. Esa gorra es de nena. No importa.
Terrell Williams never publicly apologized for the fight, but it's thought he's apologized privately. He has gone on record to say the fight haunts him though, and he knows he'll never outgrow the fight. As for Colon, he has begun a long process of recovering. After waking up from his coma, both of Colon's parents began to care for him full-time back in Florida. Although they are both divorced, they have come together for their son. Colon has slowly become more able-bodied. In a recent post on his Facebook, Colon was talking with his mother and said that he would continue fighting, despite the injury. It seems that fighting spirit is still in Colon, despite his vegetative state. Other clips on the ex-fighter's social media show him doing things like brushing his own teeth and attending events with his family. There's another clip of his mother handing Colon a cupcake for his 31st birthday. Other fighters have expressed their sadness over Colon's injury. Deontay Wilder, in particular, actually broke down one time while talking about Diggett. Wilder said that it's tragic. Diggett doesn't have any kids and now never will. Although Colon's career was cut far too short, the Puerto Rican fights on. Boxing is a tough sport, and the strongest ones are the ones who succeed. Colon is certainly one of the strongest.